Our universal translators are not perfect. Far from it, due to the different thousands of species in our galaxy alone, and the differing culture and tradition within those species, there will be some words that will not be perfectly translated into the universal translators. Usually when this happens, the machine will just spit out an equivalent to your language. Another species' homeworld would just be a main nest in insectoids. Guns in one specific vocabulary would just be blasters in another. Humans are the best example for this defect. A lot of their words needed a vast amount of context just to get started in translation. The word of their official coupling, wedding, needed historical contexts that dates back thousands of years. The word for their afterlife, heaven, is not even accurate based on humanity's best linguists. It is due to this that a lot of their translations are made by humans and explained by humans. Even then they admitted that just within their species, some words are causing misunderstandings. At the time, we proposed a massive project in correcting this imperfection by studying the human's vast amount of languages, on how a single species creates thousands of languages and dialects. The Council of the All Races Alliance considered it a non-essential issue. It has worked for thousands of years, why fix it when there are already workarounds embedded in the software? This imperfection would be the root cause of the most terrible species cleansing in the Milky Way galaxy. You see, in the Milky Way galaxy, humanity is the biggest export of skilled labor, from doctors to nurses, from engineers to architects. Even some of the brightest scientists in the Alliance are humans. From what I recall, 35% of skilled laborers in the Alliance are humans. This is due to the fact that they have the reproductive capabilities of insectoids but the minds and intellect of cetacea. All of this did not escape the barbaric minds of the Dracan Dominion. In their ambition, they would have the vast majority of humans as their slaves, becoming a foundation and support for their eventual conquest of the galaxy. It all started when parts of the Dracan intelligence caught wind of one untranslatable word from the humans. Whenever humans speak of this one word, they would feel love, pride, and value. The Drekans in their infinite wisdom sussed out that this word is something of incomparable value to the species of humanity. By their investigations, it wasn't the humans' homeworld, not their technological planet, it's not even the planet where they would send all their sick and wounded. It is something that humans consider more valuable than Earth. As they finished their investigations, they discovered that this word pointed towards a planet deep within humanity's territory, but they were baffled, compared to the security and guard of their entire armada in the solar system. The planet had little to none. Dracan scans indicated a mere division of retired soldiers and veterans were guarding the planet. When the Dracan special forces captured human soldiers on other planets, they would ask why such a precious world is so unguarded. The soldiers would be first confused, and when the captured humans realized what the Dracan were planning, they would become rabid and kill everything within their sight. This is the point where the Drekans should have stopped and reconsidered their actions. No, this only further cemented to the Dracan high authorities that attacking that planet would decimate humanity's morale and surrender to Dracan supremacy. Deciding that a conventional capture and conquest is not enough, the Drekans decided to send biological viruses into the atmosphere. If that was not enough, they irradiated the planet into oblivion, and wanted to prolong the suffering of its planet's inhabitants. When the news hit the Alliance, they condemned the Drekans for their use of illegal weapons and demanded reparations to be paid to the human. When the Alliance arbitrated a meeting between the two species, the Dracan sent their usual ambassador of war. Expecting another ambassador, all the races within the Alliance were surprised when the humans sent their highest prime minister and 5-star general. What should have been a shouting match and long discussion of the incoming conflict, the Prime Minister of Humanity asked only one question. Why? The Dracan ambassador then elucidated and revealed their plans of domination. Of killing humanity's morale and immediately demanding surrender. The delegate of humanity was only silent in that declaration. Their general ended the meeting with a low guttural of, "I see." That should have been another clue of the Dracan's mistake. After that meeting, every human within the systems of the Alliance suddenly went silent. Not the usual silent that you would expect of a defeated species, no, something else was brewing. The predator species of Yautja, when seeing a human receiving the news, said it was like the silence of a dangerous jungle. You would not hear a sound within the jungle, only the sounds of the elements. News was suddenly coming from the despoiled planet that the whole species of humanity is coming to their aid. Even though the inhabitants were already beyond saving, even though the diseases already ravaged their bodies, even if the radiation was melting their skins. The rescuers only had a sad smile on their face as they tried and failed to save even one life from the planet. They were handling all the inhabitants as if they were porcelain. From the videos and holograms that were coming from the planet, all the races could see humanity's strongest and staunchest soldiers were weeping silently. Doctors, nurses, and healthcare laborers working 24/7 in trying their best to save lives. Politicians that were the epitome of greed and avarice having soft expressions as they comforted the inhabitants on their deathbed. Before we could see any more, all the signals coming from that planet suddenly cut off and all of humanity mourned their planet for 6 months. Nothing was coming from humanity in those months. As if they all collectively decided to stop and cease all activities in the Milky Way galaxy. That should have been the last clue for the Dracan to take a hint and have second thoughts of their conquest. Instead they celebrated, thinking that their plan worked and were only waiting for the human surrender. Every month in those 6 months, their ambassador was coming and going to the Alliance to get humanity's formal surrender. But then, humanity's revenge started. The first attack of humanity did not come from their army, their soldiers, nor their armada. It started with civilians, teachers, retirees, nurses, doctors, every profession but their military arm attacked Dracons en masse. Humans who were the paragon of kindness and generosity suddenly showed ferocity that could scare the most powerful predator species. Doctors and nurses that had the knowledge of healing instead used that knowledge of killing and torturing Dracons. Civilians that had no formal military training were suddenly wielding homemade weapons to attack Dracons with ferocity that could make a Yautja take a step back. Teachers and retirees were the worst of them. Even with nothing but with bare hands and feet, they were overwhelming Dracons with their superior biology. Without any plans and thoughts. Even if they didn't not have prior communication with one another. The humans that were scattered all over the galaxy started their revenge. At the time, we did not understand why. After being quiet for 6 months, the collective humanity suddenly started attacking at the same time. The All-Race Alliance once visited the Embassy of Humanity, but we only found a receptionist in the building. The woman behind the desk did not answer the question. One ambassador had a bright idea of having a Dracan face the woman for answers, and we did. The woman, who greeted us with disguised politeness and grace, suddenly glared at the Dracan with intense and extreme hatred. It's as if the woman could barely wait to rip the would-be conqueror into pieces with her bare hands and teeth. The human female had to be subdued with 2 tetramans, and even when held down into the marble flooring of the building, her eyes stared straight into the Dracan's eye sockets and promised extreme violence. After that we avoided the embassy like a plague. 6 months after the civilians first started their revenge, humanity's armed forces finally arrived. By then every embassy, every hospital, every building that the Dracans owns even remotely and adjacently in the space of the Alliance had to be closed down due to the attacks. Before humanity's armed forces started their revenge, one of the human leaders suddenly asked us if they're not minors, underage, or remotely resembling a human child equivalent in the Dracan race. As a quirk of their biology, Dracans were bred and birthed fully grown. It was something they decided to do when the Dracan species decided on their ambitions and conquest with their advanced sciences. Fully mollified, the human nodded and went back into radio silence. Humanity's armed forces did not show the rage that their civilians had. No, it was something far worse. With their cold anger, they calculated and coordinated into slowly killing the Dracan race. They first started on the borders of the Dracan Dominion, and from all sides the borders shrank, and shrank, and shrank. Humanity showed their vengeance in a slow but methodical manner. Until the Dracans only had their homeworld left. The Dracans wanted to surrender many times, when their borders first got conquered, when they lost solar systems left and right, up until they only had their homeworld. They tried to surrender at least 20 times before they got the message that they would not get any mercy. The Alliance did not even try to call for a peaceful end of the conflict, seeing humanity's hatred. At the Dracan homeworld, surrounded by the full might of the Armada of Humanity, along with private and public ships full of human civilians as if they are watching an execution, which in hindsight, they are. The Dracan king asked why. In his mind this is an unproportionate retaliation. A mere planet is not equivalent to a whole species. That was the wrong thing to say, as the ships in orbit got even quieter, as if they heard the most absurd thing that came out since the beginning of the Big Bang. The Prime Minister and the 5-star general broadcasted themselves to the whole entire galaxy. They started with 8.4 billion souls. 8.4 billion children with caretakers, elderly and teachers. And you dare ask why? The general shouted with extreme hatred, offended that the Dracan uttered those questions. The Prime Minister then showed videos of the destroyed planet, showing their collective efforts in trying to salvage and attempt to save even one soul on the planet. All those children that you have butchered, tortured and needlessly prolonged their suffering. Only 9,723 survived, and there is only the slimmest of margins that they would even get a normal life. The human took a deep breath, trying to control her own hatred but failing to do so. You have the gall to say that was a mere planet. That planet was our future, our last cradle, our soul. Our dollar, #at. At the end the Prime Minister said the word that triggered the whole conflict. The Dracan King asked what the word meant, that was so precious to their species. The general only scoffed and said, "You have no right to know what that word means. Even if we tried to explain it to you, you would not understand." After that, the whole of humanity started bombarding the Dracan homeworld, from the crust to the mantle, and to the core. They did not stop until the rock was only debris and dust. A full 5 years have passed since then. Every year, humanity mourned in what they would call the day of sorrow and grieving. They did not even celebrate their victory against the Dracan, only remembering the deaths of the destroyed planet. At the 5-year anniversary, the leaders of humanity invited our ambassadors and leaders to join them in their grief, asking us to wear something black when we do decide to join. When we arrived, all of the humans had pure black in all of their clothing. A massive amount of black ships orbiting the planet, all of them encircling a huge obsidian monument, full of names from top to bottom. There was also eye-catching words in the middle to these innocent souls. The atmosphere was somber, all around us. Even after 5 years we could hear crying and weeping as if it just happened yesterday. One of our braver ambassadors asked what the word even means. The Prime Minister and General inputted the historical context and translation of the word. After processing for 5 minutes, the universal translator spit out, "Kindergarten."